gentlemen, welcome this morning. We are in the middle of reading the novel Farewell to Manzanar, and it's about a family who is forced into an internment camp because of their Japanese ancestry. Today we have with us Miss Naomi Tagawa. She is a longtime Hanford resident. You were born here in Hanford?
Yeah.
Here in Hanford. Her family ran the Hanford, our Kings County Hand Laundry, correct? And the building is still there. She and her family, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, were sent to an internment camp as well, this one in Arkansas. And she's going to tell us about her family and their experiences at the camp and what it was like for them when they came back. And then we'll have questions from the audience. So welcome, Ms. Tagawa. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind invitation. I'm very happy to be with you. My father came in 1900 through Seattle, and I wish I had asked him more information how he got to Hanford. But anyway, when he came to Hanford, he started working as a schoolboy in different homes, and then with two other fellows, they were raising some chickens. And then he thought something was not just right, so he wrote a letter to his brother in Japan, a very southern island, and asked him to find a bride for him. So my mother was a picture bride, and she came over in 1907. And she told my sister, I had two sisters, 5 years apart. And my middle sister I never saw because she died with diphtheria in those days. But my sister said, Mother said it was the most miserable first day she ever had because she didn't know my father at all. It was just, but they were wonderful parents. And this is my mother. They were married in San Francisco. And then these are my two sisters. And then I'm here with my sister. My middle sister died. And then later on, they went to work for the Vendome Hotel, which was across the street from the working man's store. And my sister was born there. And this is a picture of the old two-story. It was a boarding house at first. And Mama got tired of cooking, so then they went into the laundry business. And so you'll see all these pictures. And then we had a wonderful Mrs. Harlow, who was interested in being a missionary, but she couldn't go overseas, so she started working with the Chinese and the Japanese people. And she started that home is not over there on, it was on White and, let's see, Visalia Street, this home. And these are the, and a lot of the men were single men, young men that were there. And she started also a little kindergarten for all of us. And that was at the, where the parking lot of the Chinese restaurant is on 7th Street there. Our Japanese language school was there. And you'll see the work that she did with all these people. And then a lot of the women from the Presbyterian Church came over to teach the young men English. And they were so impressed and appreciated all their kindness that 4 of them became, they were mostly Buddhists before, and they became Christians. And my dad was one of the 4 that became a Christian. So I've been raised as a Presbyterian at the Mission Church, and which was located, here it is. Right now, the Sunset Garage is there, where our Mission Church used to be. And next door was a Buddhist church, and that Buddhist church has been moved around to the Green Street now. And then we had our Thanksgiving dinners and things in our mission church. And we had summer services at Three Rivers. And this is a picture of our language school where we attended. And after going to the public school, then afterwards, about an hour and a half, we would study Japanese language, and we put on plays and gave speeches in Japanese, and it was fun. And then these are, anyway, we were having a wonderful time, and I have a rough sketch of the places of business that were on 7th Street there. Of all the business, there were about 24 families that had businesses. Now it's all vacant right now, and a lot of the people didn't come back after the World War because they rented most of the property there. But you'll see the rough sketches that I have done of the 300 and 400 blocks of 7th Street, and you could see the different businesses that were around. And of course, then on December 7th, 1941, it changed nearly everyone's lives, not only ours, but our fellow American citizens too. And we were under curfew. We couldn't go out of our homes from 8 o'clock. And they had us turn in our shortwave radios, if we had any, or any weapons had to be turned into the police department. And then we were limited to the areas that we could go out. And then we saw these signs being posted on the telephone poles that what was going to happen. And we couldn't believe that we were going to be put away. And anyway, it was from, and we could only take things to camp that we could carry. And when we were told that we were supposed to go to Assembly Center, we just couldn't believe it. We kept on ironing away, and I remember a government gentleman came to see us, and he was very nice. But anyway, then our Dr. Crawshaw and our insurance man came right up to Dad and said, if you need any help, because our bank assets were all frozen too. And they came up and said, if you need any money, please let us know. And then a Miss Myra Cole, who owned the property where the Kings County Library is now, and also she had a big warehouse. She came up to my sister and said, I will take care of your property while you are gone. And so we were very fortunate that her friends, Mr. and Mrs. Powell, lived in our home for the 3 years that we were sent to camp. And then we were given instructions to go to an assembly center, which was at the Fresno Fairgrounds. You probably have seen pictures of it when the new fair just opened recently there. And we were there from, and we were picked up, and all that is sort of all blank. It's so upsetting that I can't even remember when we got on the bus to go to the Civics Auditorium, to get on the bus to go to the Fresno Assembly Center. And we were, and I thought, I know I cried and said, I wonder if when we can come back home again. And we were there from May 1942 to to October. And I worked in the, as a receptionist at one of the hospitals within the camp. They were all in barracks. There were 3 different, one was general cases, the second was for children, and the third one was for the communicable diseases. And it was a temporary place, and everything was just, we lived in a huge barrack with a ceiling was all uncovered, so you could hear whatever the neighbors were saying. And I think it was hard for some of these young couples at that time. And it was hot, and there was no refrigeration or anything, so there were cases of food poisoning. And I remember seeing lots of people in the, I was living in the C section, and I think it was a B section. You could see people just couldn't be handled within these hospitals. So they were all being laid out on the side of their cabins. And then the facility, it was all temporary, so we were just astounded that to go to a shower, it was just a shower head with no partitions or anything, and one of the older girls that we were friends with, she said, well, the Hanford girls are all going to go to have a shower tonight together, okay? And so we were just astounded that we had to stand there and shower in an open room, and then also the latrine was something awful. It was temporary, and it was a separate building, but it was just a little screen place. But anyway, we had quite a time there, and then we were wondering where we were going to be sent next, and they said Arkansas. We said Arkansas, but I volunteered to stay at the hospital until, and our folks, we were all together, our families were all together, so they went on ahead, and I stayed until October. But, and then when we went, the reason why they kept us at an assembly center was because they were still building the campsite yet. And so when we got to our block, it was a matter of 6 barracks to each side, and there were 12 barracks together, and they were all partitioned off into the center part was small families, and the end apartments were for bigger families. And of course it was set up like in the Army style, and so there was a big mess hall, and the wash house and the latrines were separate. And recently I was thinking, because as I grew older, I'm old now, and I thought about our poor parents who had to get up in the nighttime to go to the bathroom. They had to go out of their barracks too. Was located far away, so, and I remember Mom had a little chamber pot. I hate to talk about these things, but that was what was going on. And we had good food. I can't remember, except we had a lot of oysters to eat. And my niece said she remembered a lot of mutton. But I can't remember some of the food. But anyway, we were, and I worked as a secretary to the high school principal, and my brother-in-law was an art teacher. He graduated Hanford High and went to University of California, and also to the arts and crafts in Oakland. And so he was a teacher of art in camp. And so he's done 50 documentary paintings. His name is Henry Sugimoto, and his plaque is also in the King's Library. He was one of the honorees at one time. And so you'll see there, and 3 of his documentary paintings are at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., so in the history division. And I have the book that has the 50 documentary paintings here. And you're welcome to see all these things, and arts and crafts that were done in camp. And there were recreation halls, and we got to see some movies. And on Sundays, we had our services. Going back to the school system, we had wonderful Southern teachers. They were so kind to us, and in fact, after coming back, I used to send See's chocolates to 2 of the sisters that were invited us to the administration division where they lived, and they gave us, prepared us sandwiches and things, and they were so very thoughtful. And Mr. Hayes, who was the vice principal, took his secretary and me out to Jackson, Mississippi, to a hotel to have luncheon there. And they did, and I understand that he became a minister after the camp life. And it was, what else can I say? It's so hard to remember lots of things, you know, and oh, the lightning storms were just terrific over there. We think we have them bad here, but you should be over there. It was just lightning and thunder and lots of rain. So there were very deep ditches around our blocks for the drainage. And we had to walk all over the place. It was all gravelly, and there were no trees. There was a wooded area where some of them would go out and would get limbs and make canes. And you'll see the arts and crafts that the people did in camp. It was just wonderful. And they had also classes for flower arranging, and so I think people made the best that they could. And they were good citizens, but of course, you've heard about, I was trying to think, these 3 or 4 attorneys who really resisted the treatment of us as American. 2/3 of us were American citizens. And of course, our parents couldn't get citizenship during that time, and after they came back, our parents got their citizenship after 40 years. And they were just delighted. They were so happy to go to the classes at the Hague Hall in Hanford. I used to take them. And they would come back and say, now what is habeas corpus? And of course. But and so we say, oh, we better go and study our civics a little bit better. But and then there were regarding the soldiers from Hawaii, the Japanese American soldiers, and the mainland soldiers were being trained at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, which was right next door to our camp. And they were not getting along very well together. They were calling each other names, you Buddha head and katonks and all that. Then the Hawaiian soldiers came to visit the camp, and their attitude was changed completely when they saw the parents and the brothers and sisters put in camp, and here these young men volunteered to be in our army. And So you've heard of the 442 and the 100th Battalion, the most decorated unit of our U.S. Army. And you'll see those pictures over there too. I'm trying to think. Are there any questions you want to ask?
Emotionally, how did you feel about the whole experience from going to the camp and then leaving it?
Well, it was a bittersweet experience, but I think of the more of the wonderful things that did happen. I took a civil service exam after 2 years in camp, and then I went out to Washington, D.C., and worked as a War Relocation Authority, the secretary. But it was, I would say it was a mixed feeling, but we were being tested, and we were good citizens. We wanted to be loyal to our own country here, U.S. And I think just because we were of our facial, you know, the appearance was, they don't know about what are in our hearts. And but we have a wonderful nation. They apologized for what they did. And I think it was all a matter of racial issue. And they also gave us a reparation for, but I think it turns out, I hope it never happens to another group of people without, they were suspecting us that we would sabotage or do espionage work, you know, and we didn't do any of that. But there were people who really objected to the treatment, so they were sent to Tule Lake. And if they wanted to go to Japan, they were sent on the Gripsholm, Swedish ship Gripsholm. And I heard that people who did go to Japan had a very miserable time because they were having a struggle over there.
This way, right? Okay. How did you feel about your changed lifestyle? Like, did it change how you live today? Like, your experience over there?
I think I think we have a wonderful nation, and I love our nation, and we have to be forgiving. People make mistakes, and we're all humans, and that's the way I feel. I don't feel bitter at all. Thank you.
What did your barracks look like?
What did
your barracks look like your rooms?
Oh, well, let's see. Well, it was just wooden, and it was. Well, I'll show you what it looks like. It was all wooden, and there was no partition. And I don't think whether there's any picture of our barracks. Must be. Well, this was what our barracks looked like. You know, there were 8,000 of us, and there were 2 camps in Arkansas, and one was 30 miles away. And there was a reunion about 12 years ago, and this lady, professor from Arkansas, came to visit the Los Angeles area, the museums, and she went to the Japanese American Museum and didn't realize that there were 2 camps in her state. And so then she and the museum people and Mr. Rockefeller, the foundation, got together and they planned a reunion of the internees. And so I was the only one from Hanford that went. There were several others that wanted to go, but they were building a home or something. And it was a wonderful experience. It took 4 years for them to plan it, and it was just very gracious Southern hospitality, I should say. And they were expecting about 700 people, and over 1,100 turned up. And we were bused from Little Rock down to our campsite. And the son of the man who owns the property where our camp was, he's raising rice there. And he had packages of rice imprinted with the monument that's at the center. I have a picture of it. I thought I brought it. But anyway, he was very gracious, and he greeted us. And it was just I think the Baptist Church young people had a big luncheon for all of us there too. It was a wonderful experience.
Who else had a question?
And these are all the arts. You should see all the arts and crafts that were done in all the 10 camps by the people. It's just beautiful things that they made out of shells that were around the campsite, and different things. I hope you can see that. It's wonderful.
Mr. Tagawa, how old were you when you went to the camp?
I was 22. And so it was quite an experience, and going by yourself to Washington, D.C. and all that, you know, you wonder, but I could see why young people do things. You know, you're not afraid or anything, and it was in our our nation's capital. It's just wonderful.
Were you happy when your family was released?
Oh, yes. So I went back into camp and then came home with them. And it was just great. But my mother, it's so funny, you know, they worked so hard all those years, and she said, I would like to go back to camp, because she was able to take flower arrangement and all kinds of, you know, things that she really liked to do. Thank you. By the way, when we came back, we just didn't know how would we would be accepted. And so we started to pick grapes. Oh, that was hard work too. And then we picked cotton. And I really appreciate all the hard work that the people, you know, but now it's mechanical, you know. But in those days, it was 1945. So it's tough work. But then one of our former Miss Ruth Jenkins, she came up to us and said, when are you going to start your business? So that started us back. And so it's still running, and these attorneys that won't let me stop ironing their shirts. So I'm still at it. Very few, just a handful of customers, but they're rare. And I upped the price too, but they still send it.
When you're good at your job.
Are there any other?
Because you said a lot didn't come back to Hanford.
Pardon?
You had said that a lot of the families didn't come back to Hanford.
Oh yeah, they didn't. A lot of these, there were about 24. They had garages. They had a pool hall, hotels, and all that is listed here. Most of them had rented, so they didn't come back. But the farmers did. And I think they were either, let's see, I think some stayed in the Midwest, and then some of them went up to the cities. But I think it'll be interesting. And then what other things was I going to say? anyway, there's my brother-in-law's nephew wrote this book called The Silent Warriors regarding the service that the Japanese-American soldiers did in the European theater and also the Pacific theater too.
This group, because we haven't studied it in class, this group of men, Japanese-American men who wanted to prove themselves as Americans, went into fight in the war, and they were sent to Europe. And she said before that they were the most decorated group of any group of men fighting in World War II. They took the most dangerous situations and volunteered to go into those to prove themselves as Americans. Yeah. We have about 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
okay, we can go. They can go.
Oh yes, please, yes, yeah. I think I'm finished.
Thank you for coming and sharing.
Oh, before.
And in just a second, you guys can get up and take a look at the artifacts and things that she has around the room. Kind of shows her family, their history, and the things that were happening in the work at that time.
So now I wanted to show what I do enjoy. I knit these sweaters for the children for anywhere, and I give it to the mission committee of our church, and they mail it anywhere. And I knit baby blankets for the Navajo babies. Mrs. Knudsen, do you know Dr. Knudsen's wife? She mails it over there. And these are the things that I just enjoy more than doing housework, and I knit scarves, and I've knitted caps for the servicemen, and these are little shrugs that I knit for the little 4-year-olds. Aren't they cute? So I'd rather do this than the clean house.
Yeah, we don't blame you.
Aren't they cute? and we send it also to the Alaskan children, you know, Sabunga. So anyway.
Would you mind, I don't know, because this is something we don't usually ask ladies, would you mind telling my students how old you are?
Okay, we had our 73rd high school class reunion, so figure that out. I'm 91,
91.
pushing 92, but I still drive. They let me drive it. But I appreciate all the help the girls gave me today because it was so heavy, and they were wonderful. I appreciated all that they did.
Thank you,
So, what was it like growing up in Hanford?
Oh, it was just a wonderful place to grow up in. There were lots of Japanese and Chinese folks here. It was all just a happy time. And
when did you get first taken to the relocation camps?
that was in 1942. Pearl Harbor was attacked in 1941. And then there were signs put up by the soldiers that we were restricted going places, and we were under curfew. We had to stay home by 8 o'clock at night, and if there were any weapons, things that could be used as weapons, they were to be given up, and also we were to turn in radios if they had any shortwave on it, and guns and knives and things.
How
And
old were you when it first?
I was 22 at the time, and I had graduated high school, and I went to a fashion art school in San Francisco, and I was so glad that I had taken shorthand and typing. It's obsolete now, but it came very handy because when we were sent to the camp, I became a secretary to the high school principal in the camp. And and then our assets were frozen, and it was right away our family doctor, Dr. Crawshaw, and insurance man, Mr. Sheets, came up to my father and said, if you need any money, we will help you out, so don't worry. And then from May till, we were wondering where we were going to be sent. And we were sent to, which is the Fresno, I'll always forget, but it was where the, there is a monument there. What is that place now? Isn't that, see, when you get old, this happens. This has been over 70 years ago since we were sent to camp. And so, an old mind. But it's, that place where there were two camps in Fresno. Pine, I think.
You said one was at the fairgrounds, I think, didn't you?
Oh yeah, fairgrounds. That's where it was. We were sent to the fairgrounds. We were there.
Pause and then like.
No, it's fine because you can.
Okay, I can.
We were there from May till October, and I volunteered to stay for the last train because I was working for the hospital within the camp, and there were three barracks that were within the camp that were the hospitals for the general cases, and then the children's hospital, and then the communicable disease hospital. And I worked as a receptionist and for the hospital. And then we were wondering where we were going to be sent. And they said Arkansas, and we were just shocked. Arkansas. And so we got to the campsite after going on the train, and Texas is a big state. We went through the southern route, and it took a whole day to cross over within the state there. And we did get to stop in between to get out of the train, to get out, and there were guards out so that we wouldn't run away. But there was nowhere to run away to. We wouldn't know the area. It was like a no man's land. And then we got to Arkansas, and we were just really surprised with the camp. It was about 8,000 people in, it was called Jerome Relocation Center. And another campsite was at Rohwer, R-O-H-W-E-R, which was 30 miles apart. And there were about that many or more in that camp too.
What sort of things did you do while you were there, to pass the time?
Well, I worked in the high school as secretary to the high school principal. Dr. Hankins was my boss. And so I took shorthand and was a secretary there.
Did you guys have any clue as to what was going to happen before it did? Before you guys got sent away? Did you have any clue?
We had no idea, but we were to be removed from the West Coast. The Army wanted, and then we had a it was called Executive Order by President Roosevelt. And and the Army wanted us all to be removed. So 120,000 of us were moved from the West Coast.
How was that with your family? Were you guys separated, or?
We were all together, and there's a picture, and the annuals that were put out by the school, high school, is just like here. It's very nice, and all the students' activities are all in there. It's beautifully printed. I have 2 volumes of that. And my brother-in-law was an art teacher. He graduated Hanford High, and he went to University of California, and then to the arts and crafts in Oakland. And so he taught art in class in the high school, and he did 50 documentary paintings of the camp life on sheets and canvases that from the camp, and there are 50 of them that are in a book, and 3 of the paintings are at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., in the American History Division.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 2 years because I asked for clearance to go out to Washington, D.C., and so I was questioned, and I asked why was I being questioned, and the interviewer said, well, because the others went to a Japanese language school after public school too, and he said, well, you took fencing, kendo, and I had a rank, and he said they think it was associated with the Black Dragon Society of Japan. And I thought, oh my goodness, I took it for the sport, you know. And the professor that came over to start the dojos for the fencing up and down the coast, he came 2 years before Pearl Harbor. And I noticed that when we were coming home from training and all that, there was a dojo here in Hanford, and there were about 4 girls that took it, and the rest are boys. And they said, are you preparing for war? And I thought, no, this was, 2 years before Pearl Harbor. And I said, no. And, but anyway, but I was cleared.
How did you end up back in Hanford?
Camp? After a year in Washington, D.C., I was the secretary to one of the leaders for the War Relocation Authority. And when we were cleared to come back home, I went back into camp and came home on the last train. And the government worker said, this is the happiest time to bring you back home.
How did you feel coming back to Hanford after all that time?
I felt wonderful, but I was just wondering how we would be received. We didn't know how to start back in our business, and so we didn't know how we would be received, and so we went to pick grapes. There was it was for a company here, and a Japanese man was ahead of that, and so we rode on trucks and went all over to pick grapes, and we had to field pack them too, and we didn't know how. We were not used to it there, but we did the best we could, and then we even went to pick cotton, and then one of our former customers from our church, Presbyterian church, she came to us and said, when are you going to start your business? So that started us back.
How long was it How long was it from when you first arrived back at Hanford to when you started the laundry back up again?
Oh, probably about a year.
Got right to it, huh? Did you get a lot of business from people, or?
Yes, we did. Mom and Dad, you know. Yes, there were people who I can't remember how many, but
You had regular customers?
yeah, we had yes, we had no problem.
How were you received when you came back? Was it friendly, or?
Yes, they were friendly friends that came up to us to greet us.
Was the majority of how many Japanese Americans were there in Hanford at the time?
There are lots of businesses that the Japanese had on the 300 and 400 block of 7th Street. I think about 22 to 24 families that owned businesses. They had owned the theater and rooming houses and a market and a fish market and shoe repair shop and ice cream parlors. There were 3 ice cream parlors. So I never got to Superior's until I graduated from Hanford High School. And that was way back in 38, you know, when I graduated. So we're having our 75th class reunion this year.
Oh, wow. That sounds like fun.
There were 185 of us. And last year there were 12 that came. And, you know, they've gone, lots of them have gone to heaven.
Yeah. Mm. That must be nice, you know, being back where...
And we were very fortunate because Miss Myra Cole, who used to own the property where the King's Library is now, she came up to my sister and said, I will take care of your property for you while you are gone. And so we were very fortunate to have such a very kind friend to do that. And so in this house, her friend, a teacher, and her husband lived here.
So they took care of the property for you?
Yes, yes. And in fact, her Miss Myra Coe's niece has the Kubota tractor company over here. She's Myra Kovac, and she's a very wonderful person, and she's very active in organizing the reunion too.
I've heard about you eat a lot, you know, at Superior Dairy and places right here.
Yes, people know that I enjoy Superior Dairy.
I wish I could go more often than I do.
And they serve sandwiches and soup. If some people think nothing but ice cream, and it wasn't. It's not that way.
Oh, yeah. So you take you're very active now, from what I've heard.
I still sing in our church choir. I'm the oldest, and yes, and I knit a lot, baby blankets, and they're sent to some Navajo babies and children in Alaska. And I knit sweaters and have them sent by the mission committee. And I'm still working. These attorneys won't let me stop, 2 of them especially.
So you still run the laundry?
Yes, I do. Yes.
How many customers do you get?
I've cut back because I've been trying to quit. You know, and so really those 2 and well, maybe about 4 or 5.
Just regular customers?
They're very regular customers, and I get a little vacation time when they go off on their trips and things.
Is there Is there anything you'd like people to know now and, keep in mind as they think of the things that you and other people had to go through?
Well, it was an injustice because 2/3 of us that were put into camp were American citizens. And our folks received their citizenship after 40 years. They went to evening school. We used to take them to Hague Hall for their citizenship class, and they were, I don't know, about 20 or 30 of them received their citizenship at the courthouse, the old courthouse. And, I just hope that, but we have a wonderful government. They apologized to us for what they did, and I hope it won't happen to another group of people. We have a great country.